Welcome to my channel StarWire Daily. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. When your parents come home from federal prison after serving years behind bars, you'd think the reunion would be nothing but pure joy and celebration. But sometimes, reality hits harder than any fairy tale ending. Tonight, we're diving deep into the Chrisley family drama that's been brewing behind closed doors. And trust me, this story has more twists than their hit reality show ever did. Savannah Chrisley, the golden child of the Chrisley Empire, has just dropped a bombshell that's sending shockwaves through their fan base. After welcoming her parents Todd and Julie back home, following their presidential pardon in May, Savannah is now packing her bags and walking away from the family nest. But this isn't just any ordinary young adult moving out story. This is about survival, independence, and the complicated reality of rebuilding a family that's been through absolute hell. Let's rewind for a moment. Picture this. For 2.5 years, Savannah Chrisley went from being daddy's little princess to becoming the backbone of an entire family empire. While Todd and Julie served their time in federal prison for bank fraud and tax evasion, 28-year-old Savannah stepped up in ways that would break most people. She became the guardian to her younger brother Grayson and niece Chloe, managed the family's financial affairs, kept their brand alive, and somehow maintained her sanity while the world watched every move. The pressure was suffocating. Imagine being in your mid-20s, the age when most people are figuring out their own lives, and suddenly you're responsible for raising children, managing a multi-million-dollar brand, and keeping hope alive for a family that's been torn apart by federal charges. Savannah didn't just survive, she thrived under pressure that would have crushed anyone else. But here's where the story gets really interesting. When Todd and Julie finally walked through those doors in May, thanks to that presidential pardon, everyone expected it to be like a movie ending. Credits roll. Family reunited happily ever after. But real life? Real life is messy, more complicated, and sometimes more painful than any script could capture. On our latest podcast episode of Unlocked. And yes, the timing of this revelation is absolutely deliberate. Savannah opened up about something that's been eating at her for months. She's moving out. Not because she doesn't love her family, not because she's ungrateful for their return, but because at almost 30 years old, she desperately needs something she's been denied for years. Her own space. Listen to her words carefully, because they're loaded with so much more than just a simple moving announcement. She said, "I have loved all the time I have had with my family. I have loved it. But as an almost 30-year-old woman, I need my own space." There's pain in those words. There's exhaustion. And there's a woman who's been carrying the weight of the world, finally admitting she needs to breathe. But here's what makes this situation even more complex. It's not just about Savannah wanting independence. The woman who held everything together while her parents were away is now feeling overwhelmed by the very responsibilities she once handled with such grace. She revealed that she's over all of the upkeep that comes with running a home. And honestly, can you blame her? For 2.5 years, Savannah managed everything. The landscaping, the pool maintenance, the household staff, the endless details that come with maintaining the Chrisley lifestyle. She became the CEO of their domestic empire, while simultaneously being a surrogate parent, a public spokesperson, and somehow maintaining her own career and sanity. When she says she just wants to walk out my door, lock it, and leave, you can feel the exhaustion in every word. This isn't just about wanting freedom. This is about a young woman who gave up her 20s to hold a family together. And now that the crisis is over, she's realizing what that sacrifice actually cost her. She's moving into a condo, trading the sprawling family estate for something simple, manageable, and entirely her own. And when her parents asked if she'd miss the house, her response was perfect. "I'm not going to miss landscapers. I'm not going to miss pool people." But let's talk about the elephant in the room, the family dynamics that are clearly more complicated than what we see on social media. Savannah revealed something that gives us a glimpse into just how different life has become since Todd and Julie's return. She mentioned struggling with a difference in lifestyles with her parents, and then she dropped this bombshell about her father. Picture this scene. You're 28 years old, you've been living independently for years, managing your own life and everyone else's, and your father comes into your space and throws out your seltzers. Not asks you to remove them, not discusses his concerns, throws them out. Todd Chrisley, the man who built his brand on being the perfectly controlling patriarch, came into his adult daughter's space and disposed of her alcoholic beverages because he didn't approve. Savannah's reaction tells us everything we need to know about how she's changed during these past few years. The old Savannah might have just accepted it, might have deferred to daddy's wishes. But this Savannah said, "Who does that? Who does that?" She's not the compliant little princess anymore. She's a woman who's learned her own worth and isn't willing to compromise it, even for family. The fact that she can go and rebuy them isn't the point. The point is respect, boundaries, and the reality that sometimes coming home from prison means everyone has to learn how to be a family all over again. Todd's behavior shows a man trying to regain control in a world that moved on without him, while Savannah's reaction shows a woman who's outgrown being controlled. What makes this story so compelling is that it's happening in real time, in front of millions of followers who've been invested in this family journey for years. Savannah isn't hiding behind PR statements or carefully crafted social media posts. She's being raw, honest, and vulnerable about the messy reality of family reconstruction. Think about the courage it takes to admit that having your parents home, the thing you prayed for, fought for, and waited for, is also incredibly challenging. There's guilt in that admission, there's complexity, and there's a level of emotional maturity that's honestly impressive. She's not saying she doesn't love them or want them in her life. She's saying she needs to love them from her own space. The timing of this announcement is also fascinating. With the Chrisleys, Back to Reality, premiering soon, Savannah is getting ahead of the narrative. She's controlling her own story instead of letting the show's producers dictate how this family transition is portrayed. She's learned something powerful during those 2.5 years of crisis management. She's learned that her voice matters, her needs matter, and she has the right to prioritize her own well-being. Here's what I find most beautiful about Savannah's decision. She's not running away from her family. She's running toward herself. After years of being defined by crisis, by responsibility, by everyone else's needs, she's finally asking the question, what does Savannah need? And the answer is space, independence, and the simple luxury of being responsible only for herself. Moving into a condo isn't just a change of address. It's a declaration of independence. It's saying, I love you, but I also love me, and I deserve to have a life that's mine. It's choosing mental health over family expectations, personal growth over comfort zones, and authenticity over keeping up appearances. But let's be real about what this means for the Chrisley family dynamic. Todd and Julie are probably struggling with this decision more than they're letting on. They've just returned to a family that functioned without them, children who grew up in their absence, and a daughter who became the head of the household while they were gone. Savannah moving out is probably triggering every fear they have about losing more time, missing more moments, and being shut out of the lives they fought so hard to return to. However, if they're smart, and the Chrisleys are nothing if not smart, they'll recognize that Savannah's decision is actually the healthiest thing for everyone involved. She's not disappearing. She's creating space for healthier relationships. She's not abandoning the family. She's taking care of herself so she can continue to be there for them without resentment or burnout. The woman who held everything together during the darkest chapter of their family's history has earned the right to define what the next chapter looks like for her. She's proven she can handle crisis, manage responsibility, and maintain grace under pressure. Now she's proving she can also recognize her limits, honor her needs, and make difficult decisions that serve her long-term well-being. What's also fascinating is how this decision reveals the growth that happens when someone is forced to become independent under extreme circumstances. Savannah didn't choose to become the family CEO. It was thrust upon her by circumstances. But in rising to meet those circumstances, she discovered capabilities, strengths, and preferences she might never have known about herself otherwise. She learned she could run a household, manage a brand, raise children, and handle media scrutiny, all while maintaining her own career and public persona. But she also learned that she prefers simplicity over complexity, independence over dependence, and peace over perfection. These aren't lessons you can learn from a textbook. These are lessons carved out through experience, struggle, and survival. The decision to move into a condo instead of buying another large house is telling. She could afford anything she wants, but what she wants is something manageable, something that won't require staff to maintain, something that allows her to just be. That's the choice of someone who's learned the difference between what looks impressive and what actually brings happiness. I think what strikes me most about Savannah's journey is how it mirrors what so many people in their late 20s and 30s are going through, just on a much more public and dramatic scale. How many of us have had to renegotiate relationships with our parents as we've grown and changed? How many of us have had to learn to set boundaries with family members who still see us as the people we used to be rather than who we've become? The difference is that most of us don't have to do it while managing a public brand, dealing with media scrutiny, and navigating the aftermath of a federal prison sentence. Most of us don't have to worry about how our personal growth affects a reality TV show or disappoints millions of fans who've invested in our family story. But at its core, this is a universal story about growing up, setting boundaries, and learning that loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself for them. It's about the courage it takes to disappoint people in service of your own authenticity and well-being. Savannah's move also represents something hopeful. It represents healing. For 2.5 years, her life was defined by crisis, by holding things together, by managing everyone else's needs. Moving out is her way of saying, the crisis is over, and now I get to choose what my life looks like. She's not just moving out of her parents' house. She's moving into her own life. She's trading the role of family savior for the role of independent woman. She's choosing growth over comfort, authenticity over expectation, and her own well-being over everyone else's convenience. This decision will probably be controversial among some fans who want to see the fairy tale reunion where everyone lives happily ever after under one roof. But real healing, real growth, and real family dynamics are messier and more complex than any fairy tale. Sometimes loving your family means loving them from a distance. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is create space for everyone to figure out who they are in this new chapter. I keep thinking about that moment when Savannah said she loves being alone and it's been tough not having alone time and space. There's something so honest and vulnerable about that admission. In a culture that often equates being alone with being lonely, she's brave enough to say that solitude is something she craves, something she needs, something that brings her joy. After years of being constantly needed, constantly on, constantly responsible for everyone else's emotional and practical needs, the idea of coming home to silence, to her own choices, to her own timeline must feel like the ultimate luxury. The ability to have a glass of wine without judgment, to decorate her space exactly how she wants it, to not worry about landscaping or pool maintenance. These might seem like small things, but they represent enormous freedom for someone who's been carrying the weight of a family empire. And let's talk about the business side of this decision, because Savannah Chrisley is nothing if not strategic. By announcing this move on her podcast before the new show premieres, she's controlling the narrative. She's making sure that when viewers see whatever family drama unfolds on the Chrisleys, back to reality, they understand her perspective first. She's also demonstrating something that's probably been lost in all the family drama coverage. She's a successful businesswoman in her own right. She has her own podcast, her own brand, her own income streams. This isn't a case of a spoiled reality star being dramatic. This is a case of a successful entrepreneur making strategic decisions about her life and career. The fact that she can afford her own place, can make this choice independently, and can support herself without relying on the family brand show's growth and independence that goes far beyond just moving out of mom and dad's house. She's financially independent, professionally established, and emotionally mature enough to make difficult decisions that serve her long-term interests, even when they might be unpopular in the short term. You know what I love about this whole situation? Savannah isn't making excuses or apologizing for her decision. She's not saying, "I'm so sorry, but I have to move out." She's saying, "I'm moving out and I'm excited about it. That confidence, that ownership of her choices, that refusal to apologize for prioritizing her own well-being, that's the mark of someone who's truly grown up. She's learned something that takes some people decades to figure out. You can love your family and still need space from them. You can be grateful for their presence in your life, while also recognizing that their return creates complications and challenges that need to be navigated thoughtfully. The woman who stepped up during crisis is now stepping into her own power, and honestly, it's beautiful to watch. She's not running away from responsibility. She's choosing which responsibilities to take on and which ones to hand back. She's not abandoning her family. She's creating a dynamic where she can be present with them by choice rather than by obligation. As we watch this story unfold, I think we're witnessing something really significant in the evolution of the Chrisley family. This isn't just about Savannah moving out. This is about a family learning how to be a family again after extraordinary circumstances have changed everyone involved. Todd and Julie are coming home to children who grew up without them, to a daughter who became a woman in their absence, and to a family dynamic that learned to function without their leadership. That's not easy for any parent, but it's especially challenging for parents whose brand was built on being in control of their family's narrative. Savannah is transitioning from crisis manager back to daughter, from head of household to independent adult, from family savior to individual woman. That transition requires space, time, and the freedom to figure out who she is when she's not constantly needed by everyone around her. The rest of the family, Grayson, Chloe, and everyone else, are also navigating their own adjustments as the family structure shifts again. Everyone is trying to find their place in this new normal, and sometimes that requires difficult conversations, boundary setting, and yes, physical space. What makes Savannah's story so compelling is that it's not unique to famous families or dramatic circumstances. Anyone who's ever been the responsible one, the one who holds everything together during crisis, can relate to the exhaustion she describes. Anyone who's ever had to renegotiate family relationships as an adult can understand the complexity of loving people while also needing space from them. Her courage to prioritize her own needs, to set boundaries with family members, and to make decisions that serve her long-term well-being rather than short-term peace. That's something we can all learn from, regardless of our circumstances. As she prepares for this new chapter, living in her own space, answering only to herself, and rebuilding her relationship with her family from a place of choice rather than obligation, we're watching someone choose healing over comfort, growth over stagnation, and authenticity over expectation. The Chrisley family's journey has always been about more than just entertainment. It's been about resilience, family bonds, and the messy reality of life in the spotlight. Savannah's decision to move out adds another layer to that story, showing us that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is create space for everyone to grow. As we follow this next chapter of their story, both on the upcoming show and through Savannah's continued openness on our podcast, we're going to see a family that's learning how to love each other in new ways, how to respect each other's growth, and how to build healthy relationships after surviving extraordinary challenges. What do you think about Savannah's decision to move out? Do you think she's making the right choice for her own well-being, or do you think families should stick together no matter what? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between family expectations and your own needs? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing your perspectives on these family dynamics. If you found this deep dive into the Chrisley family situation as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes looks at your favorite celebrities and their real-life dramas. We're always bringing you the stories behind the headlines, the human moments behind the glamour, and the real talk about what it's like to live life in the public eye. Ring that notification bell so you never miss when we drop new content, because trust me, the entertainment world never stops giving us incredible stories to explore together. Until next time, keep living your own authentic story, setting your own boundaries, and remembering that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself.